If Steven Crowder is a name you've never heard before, consider yourself lucky. In the past few years, he has become one of the most popular voices in the right-wing space of the internet. His debate videos, which he refers to as "Change My Minds," have allowed his fans to heap praise upon him for his debating skills. However, I would argue that these videos are spreading basic fascist ideology, much like other popular right-wing influencers are. Steven Crowder is constantly attempting to spread false consciousness in an attempt to foment racial tensions and dismantle the welfare state. Furthermore, his Change My Mind videos reinforces viewers' confidence in reactionary ideology because his opponents are always unprepared and often much younger. Crowder has lately been involved in a lot of controversy for his blatant lying and racism. One of those recent controversies is his use of his platform to spread conspiracy theories about the 2020 presidential election. He has repeatedly had Rudy Giuliani on his show to spread them, including the video he uploaded the day after the election. I will admit that these theories were not as thoroughly debunked by this point, but it is highly objectionable to have been involved with the spread of them at all. There is no evidence aside from conjecture by Republicans, and Crowder chose to run with it in order to profit. For instance, he makes this claim in the video.
Nevada. Already over 3,000 invalid ballots have been found. Many more to come. Already 3,000. The margin for Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, is about 27,000. Now, the 3,000 that have been found are either people who are dead or people who don't live in Nevada. So again, we don't know, but let's just say Nevada has some problems. Take Nevada off because that might be something that needs to go to the courts.
This is a pretty outrageous claim to be making without any evidence other than the word of a campaign official. This article from Statesman addresses the point directly. The campaign's list showed zip codes for voters' current and previous addresses, but it left out other personally identifying information. The lawyer said they formed it by cross-referencing the list of general election voters in Nevada with publicly available change of address records. The ACLU of Nevada said the list showed changes of address for people who moved to military bases, including at least 129 Army or Air post office addresses, 13 fleet post offices, and 15 diplomatic post offices. A number of those that Crowder and his lackeys meant to disenfranchise were members of the military. That's ironic. Discussing fraud in Michigan, he dives even deeper into the conspiratorial realm.
Where that was being used, also being used in 47 counties in Michigan. There's a lot more to get to, but Michigan, okay, let's take that one off the board because we don't know. I'm not saying that, of course, all these go for Trump, but I'm saying these states will necessarily have to be fought in the courts. How do you have thousands of votes go blip, 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 switch, and people go, oh, yeah.
Glitch. Yeah.
It's fine.
It's a glitch.
We're comfortable with our current electoral system, unless you're Maduro.
It's genuinely unbelievable what fascists will do to justify their positions of power. Before I discuss the election claims any further, I'd like to read an excerpt from an article in Freep. The filing defines the alleged key as a sixth-degree polynomial that unlocks the door and uncovers the ability to manipulate data and results. Frank's analysis was filed as an exhibit in the case, and he explains his findings in a YouTube video that has received more than 26,000 views. Frank says his work shows that elections are being decided at the state level. I'm sure if I was smarter this would make sense, but I don't really see how all the pieces fit together. The fact that Crowder is spreading content this conspiratorial on his channel without even an acknowledgement that it's batshit is extremely startling. This fascist tactic of bending the truth to the point it's virtually unrecognizable is on clear display here. If you were predisposed to believing that election fraud stole the election from Trump, and someone you trusted as a political commentator gave you numerous instances of potential fraud, surely you'd believe at least one. And if one happened, why not two? Crowder is clearly capable of spreading dangerous fascist rhetoric. Crowder is constantly using his platform in an attempt to spread false consciousness. Unlike many other popular conservatives, Crowder rarely shies away from outright racism in his arguments and comedy. While many other large conservatives have used their platform to argue for the abolition of the welfare state and reductions in union activity and regulation, rarely do they use their platforms to so brazenly stoke racial divisions. Every year, Crowder runs an event which he refers to as Cultural Appropriation Month, in which he and the other members of his show dress up in racially offensive costumes. They also produce multiple skits that play on racial and ethnic stereotypes. This calls directly back to the pre-civil rights era of racial comedy in the South. It was common for performers to put on shows that appealed to racially based humor and a play on the biases of their audiences. No conservative today would claim that blackface or minstrel shows are acceptable forms of humor, and yet this is what Crowder's Cultural Appropriation Month amounts to. While I'm not going to show footage of blackface or minstrel shows as they're highly abhorrent, here's a clip of one of the sketches Crowder uses in his 2021 Cultural Appropriation Month show for Japan. Crowder and his fans would argue that they are not racist, actually, and that this is all in good fun. But is there a lot of merit to that statement? Recently, there's been much academic interest in the effect of racist jokes on racial discourse. This 2017 article in Sociological Perspectives attempts to explore this topic further. Are there spaces or contexts where overt racial and racist discourse occurs in public where people enjoy it? Are there settings where racist discourse is not seemingly motivated by, say, anger or hate, but by fun and amusement? It goes on to discuss the role of joke books in the 80s and 90s of returning vulgarity to racial discussion post-civil rights and pre-internet. These joke books were marketed, much like Crowder markets himself, as offending everyone. However, the production of such books was not indiscriminate, or simply bent on offending everybody. They are strategic in light of the recent cultural changes in race talk following the civil rights movement. The intent is clear. There is no benefit to stoking racial divisions aside from power. The goal of the bourgeois media right now is to divide based on race, so that the proletariat will not realize that the lines that truly divide us are based on class. An interesting 2004 article by Anton Alahar in Social and Economic Studies, while specifically discussing the post-colonial Caribbean, has a powerful message for the rest of the world teetering on the edge of fascism. Depending on the movement's leadership and its general degree of class consciousness and political action, working-class nationalism can be channeled in either a reactionary bourgeois or a progressive socialist direction. The former, as is often the case, may witness the emergence of politically skilled petty bourgeois ethnic entrepreneurs who use appeals to race and ethnic solidarity as distractions, and who also exploit false consciousness by tapping into the emotions of the workers and commanding their allegiance. The latter, on the other hand, will look beyond race and ethnic differences and attempt to retain its class character. This will speak to true class consciousness in the attempts by both the leadership and the rank and file of the movement to promote a socialist alternative to dependent capitalism and create possibilities for the triumph of humanism and communalism over materialism, consumerism, and individualism. The answer to Crowder, then, is clear. We cannot allow the sphere of political discourse to be clogged by fascism, and so we must continue to spread class consciousness. This is becoming more and more important as the Overton window shifts farther to the right. However, this is made considerably more difficult by the manner in which Crowder chooses to engage in debate. Change My Mind is Steven Crowder's debate series. Most of the time, these videos are shot at college campuses, in which Steven Crowder sets up a table and discusses a topic, usually stacked in his favor to begin with random college students. The first problem here is that the relationship is inherently unequal. Crowder has decided the topic of conversation, the day, and has come prepared. His debate partners are wandering around campus and probably between classes. Occasionally he has a conversation with a well-educated activist, but more often than not his debates are with people who don't know anything about their positions. Crowder has actually attempted to respond to accusations of fascism against Trump directly in his video "Trump is not a fascist, Change My Mind." In this case, he sets up a table in front of the White House and spoke with random passerby. I think some of the arguments he makes in this video deserve individual attention because of the way he attempts to deflect accusations of fascism against Trump without addressing them directly.
For example, probably the most severe example is he fired Comey, right? That was a big one.
Okay.
Fired James Comey. So we're talking about the investigation. I know we often go to the Russia probe or who he's granted security clearances to or removed. Let me ask you this. Is it within his constitutional authority to do that?
Yes.
Okay. So that wouldn't be an example of fascism.
No.
This argument is not meaningful. The argument that Trump could not be a fascist because he is acting in line with the law simply does not reflect the reality of fascist politics. Trump's constitutional power to fire Comey reveals fundamental flaws in the way the American system of government is designed. Crowder attempts to simply dance around the idea that bourgeois democracy naturally tends toward authoritarianism.
Trouble in their home countries.
Yeah.
Are trying to
Refugees?
asylum, refugees.
Yeah.
Right. And so he says he is saying there are no refugees. These are simply all illegal immigrants.
Yes.
And as they step foot across the border, they are now criminals.
Yes.
So is he not breaking, is that a law or is that simply a custom United Nations somebody put out and said you have to take refugees in? Is he not breaking laws?
No, he's not. As a matter of fact, that is United States law.
Why does Crowder suggest that violations of international human rights are somehow justified because of the letter of the national law? Crowder and many on the right wing have recently been extremely outspoken about the treatment of Uyghurs by the CCP, but simply fail to recognize that groups that they have designated as other are literally being held in concentration camps on the southern border to this day. This propaganda is extremely destructive and hypocritical. Furthermore, the history of United States immigration law seems to refute the argument that following American immigration law cannot be fascist. The lack of humanity by Crowder and his lackeys have resulted in significant numbers of COVID infections at the border concentration camps. It is genuinely disgusting that he attempts to portray his position as compassionate here. Pew Research claimed in 2019 that more than 8 in 10 adults say that political debate in this country has become more negative and less respectful. Crowder has attempted to respond to this by claiming that he has become the bastion of civil discourse between right and left, despite the fact that all of his debates are characterized by an extreme power imbalance. Isn't it crazy how the only leftists brave enough to face Steven Crowder get absolutely destroyed? He also attempts to use Change My Mind to spread traditionalist values. One in particular spreads a hallmark right-wing point of view, anti-feminism. His arguments in Change My Mind, Rape Culture is a Myth, are important because they point to a larger misogynistic worldview that fails to recognize the power imbalance in modern society between men and women.
That's the idea of rape culture, the idea that rape is, and you sort of echoed that, I want to make sure we both agree to start with, that it's a society or a culture at large where rape is either promoted, encouraged, or tolerated.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't agree.
Can you tell me why?
Statistically, it doesn't bear out. We charge rapists, we put them in jail. Rape is a very rare crime, and I don't believe that we live in a culture that supports or condones rape or tolerates it.
Here he attempts to define rape culture as a culture in which rape is either encouraged or tolerated, which is a gross mischaracterization. There need not be an open consensus that rape is a good thing for there to be a rape culture in a society, and it is highly dishonest of Crowder to suggest that. Rape culture is the idea that rape is perpetuated in society by traditional ideas about gender roles, masculinity, and violence. It is difficult to quantify such a theory, but multiple models have been produced that attempt to explain the memes that lead to rape being perpetuated. A 2017 study from the Journal of Interpersonal Violence attempts to back up these models with data, and shows that it is very possible that the ideas that underlie rape culture are present in modern society. Crowder, whenever he thinks he can get away with it, is constantly portraying himself as the victim. Somewhat ironic given the fact that he does his best to show off his masculinity. He has gotten in trouble with YouTube for making offensive content and for breaking their rules, and he tells his viewers that it is censorship because of his political views. I do not condone censorship, but the kind of vitriol that Crowder adds to political discourse is not productive. Jason Stanley wrote in How Fascism Works, "No one thinks that the demands of free inquiry require adding researchers to university faculties who seek to demonstrate that the earth is flat. Such a position we have determined through conclusive scientific inquiry to be fruitless. Even the most ardent defender of free speech does not argue that we should spend precious university resources on this question. Adding a flat earther would, rather, impede objective inquiry. Similarly, I can safely and justifiably reject ISIS ideology without having to confront its advocates in the classroom or factory lounge." Crowder's recent beef with H3H3 Productions and daring escape from Sam Cedar may be foreshadowing the end of his relevance, but it is hard to say. Considering the fact his YouTube channel is only a strike away from deletion, there is certainly some hope that Crowder won't be a permanent presence in the political space. Thank you.